Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Get your Wild Turkey 101. Oh, this is gonna be terrible. Oh no, I dribbled. This is episode 5, early Muslim expansion video. That's what it is. Final 53 minutes. I guess maybe I'll do like 18 minutes per. 17 minutes per. We'll just call it 17 minutes. Let's feel good. Get ready to watch me do this shot and video.
According to sources, the latter accepted it without much protest, but it did change the flow of the Caliphate's expansion in the region. Abu Ubaidah was much slower and more deliberate than Khalid. Umar preferred a more hands-on approach to the armies, often issuing orders after every engagement, which slowed down the campaigns due to the distance to Medina. He even placed informers in the army, which made Abu Ubaidah even more careful in his decisions. At the same time, the Muslims received some reinforcements, bringing the total number of their troops.
I just want to say, and I apologize to the person who said it today, but we were talking about the 4th video, and I was upset that Khalid was replaced because I felt that replacing him was going to be, he was. I figured he was too good for his own good, and so he would have been executed. And also because he's so good, you don't want the people to go to him over whoever's in charge, throne, king, whatever. And somebody pointed out that the reason why he was replaced was the belief that Muslims would win the battle, period. It didn't matter who was in charge. Allah was in charge. And so, that makes a little bit of sense, but I would say that Khalid doesn't sound like... It seems to me like the guy with the hot hand building up the wins is going to mentally really roll over the opponent, because they're going to be like, you build up that fear, of going against him. I apologize. I just wanted to point that out in case other people wondered the same thing. Like, why are they replacing him? He's winning. Well, that was why.
To 30,000. However, that wasn't the only change in command made by Umar, which brings us back to Iraq, where Khalid left Muthanna in charge of a 9,000 strong army in 634. For the next few months, Muthanna, whose numbers weren't enough to conquer any more lands, implemented the tactic of raids in order to keep the superior Sassanid forces at bay. The details are lost to time, but the Sassanids, who were used to fighting in pitched battles, were having a difficult time containing the raids, and one of them even reached Babylon.
Is the raids just to keep the Sassanids where they are instead of having them join forces with other groups? I'm going to guess it's to keep them on their toes as far away from the battlefield as possible. Guessing.
The best Sassanid commander, Rostam, who basically controlled the court of the 10-year-old Shah Yazdegerd, was reluctant to leave the capital, worried that it might incite another revolt. But Muthanna's raids were too dangerous, so the general decided to take command over the forces in Iraq and marched south, supported by the Sassanid generals Bahman, Jaban and Nasi, and the Armenian noble Jalinus. Even before this multi-pronged counterattack began, Muthanna knew that he needed reinforcements and sent a messenger to the capital. By August, this messenger was in Medina, just in time for the ascension of Umar. The new caliph appointed Abu Ubaid, not to be confused with Abu Ubaidah, to command in Iraq and gave him 6,000 or so troops to reinforce Muthanna. The latter was now informed of the Sassanid counterattack, and when Jaban got close to Al-Hira in late September, the Arab commander abandoned it, retreating to Kafan. By early October, Abu Ubaid joined him, bringing the total strength of the Caliphate's force to more than 15,000, a similar number to that commanded by Jaban, who crossed the Euphrates and was now at Namarik.
Maybe it's been about a week or so since or 2 weeks, 3 weeks since I started this. I swore Jaban was killed early on. I saw him and, oh no, he won. And then he just left. Sorry. Too much drinking.
The details of the battle at Namarik are not clear, but it seems that Jaban suffered a minor defeat and was forced to retreat beyond the river. Abu Ubaid decided to fight the approaching Sassanid armies in detail and marched north towards Kaskar, hoping to defeat the smaller army under Nasi and knock him out. Although the Muslims won again, the Persian army managed to retreat mostly intact, and Abu Ubaid, who knew that Jalinus might cut his retreat to Al-Hira, moved his army double time to prevent this from happening. Indeed, the army of the Caliphate reached the city before Jalinus blocked them. The closest Sassanid armies to Al-Hira were those of Jalinus and Bahman. A letter from Rostam ordered them to unite their troops, cross the Euphrates and attack the city. In late October of 634, their united armies, numbering around 20,000, attempted to force the river near Kufa, but Abu Ubaid and his 15,000 were able to halt this crossing. For some time, the armies stood in front of each other screaming insults, until a Sassanid emissary approached Abu Ubaid with Bahman's message: "Either you cross over to our side and we shall let you, or we shall cross over to your side and you must let us."
Doesn't you cross over to our side? So, okay. These guys want to cross over, or they're saying, okay, you cross over here, or we're going to cross over there. Now, if this unit says, oh, okay, and they start crossing over, are they going to back away and let them? I mean, obviously, I'm sure there's plenty of room here for actual battle. Okay, let's say they're going to be generous and back away because they have guys here. Do you think that these guys are going to let them cross? Hell no. I mean, I hate to say this, but that would be stupid. You have them bottlenecked here. You fight the war here. And if you get a lot of them, maybe you burn down the bridge. I'm not a gentleman when it comes to war because I don't really know how things work, but I just know what I would do. I apologize for the pauses.
Although his officers protested it, Abu Ubaid was eager to cross and fight in a pitched battle, so he ordered his army to do that.
Okay.
Seeing this, Bahman repositioned his troops slightly to the north, allowing the Muslims to move across and form up. Okay. Unlike previous battles, the Persians had a dozen or so elephants, and they were placed in the vanguard with heavy cavalry between them and the infantry in the second echelon.
Second question. I apologize. How effective were the war elephants in terms of... Hey! Stop! Dogs are growling. How effective were war elephants? Like, is it just one person up there? Is the elephant just supposed to rampage through? Or are they firing arrows from there? Like, we didn't have war elephants here. I apologize. To anyone who's thinking Americans obviously used war elephants, you would be wrong. Unless we did, and I don't know about it. Then you would be correct, because I don't know.
Abu Ubaid's army crossed the river in 2 hours and started to get into formation, once again with horsemen in front and the footmen in the second line. Bahman continued to wait, and it was Abu Ubaid who gave the order to his soldiers to attack. The Arab cavalry galloped forward, but their horses were scared of the elephants, probably seeing them for the first time, and the charge stopped before it managed to reach the Sassanid lines. In response, Bahman moved his archers to the front and commanded them to shoot at the retreating Arabs. The volleys killed and wounded many, and when the leaders of the army of the Caliphate attempted to move their archers forward to start skirmishing, the whole Arab line became chaotic and disjointed. The Persian commander used that and directed his cavalry and elephants to attack. While
this is after the Persian Empire, I'm thinking 300 times time frame, which I know this is. How long were the Persians an empire still? Were they ever an empire? What is happening? Have I been drinking too much? I only did 2 shots. Maybe I need a third. I'm sorry.
the cavalry was mostly stopped, the elephants easily created wedges everywhere they struck. The Arab army was slowly but surely forced back. The presence of the elephants was panicking the horses, so in order to stabilize the front, Abu Ubaid commanded his horsemen to dismount. He led a group of warriors himself, killing a few elephants and their entourages. However, another elephant was sent towards the Arab leader, and soon he was killed by the beast. Many other Muslim leaders were killed, and their army started fleeing in chaos, and the Sassanids started chasing them. Muthanna was one of the last remaining commanders, and he achieved some degree of discipline and organization at the crossing, leading the rearguard and allowing the remainder of the army to retreat. He was badly wounded during the fight, but his actions saved thousands. The Battle of the Bridge was the first battle the Persians won in this war. More than 10,000 Muslims lay dead, while the Sassanid casualties were around 2,000. Over the following weeks, Bahman didn't pursue Muthanna, who withdrew to Ulays and returned to Ctesiphon. Some sources claim that there was another rebellion against Rostam, others that Bahman was sent to deal with the Turkic raiders. The sources are also conflicted on the events that happened in Iraq later in 634 and then in 635, with some chronicles asserting that Muthanna's army deserted and he abandoned all the previous conquests, and others stating that the Sassanids sent a large army under Miran and it was decisively defeated at Buwaib in April of 635. In any case, this lull in action allows us to return to the Levant. The Muslim army was getting used to the new command structure, and using this pause, Heraclius was bringing more forces into the region, by land to Antioch, and, as the Romans had complete naval control, by sea to the various ports. The second group was to be commanded by Theodore Tritherius, the treasurer of the empire, and in December of 634, it started assembling to the west of
the treasury of the empire is going to lead a military unit? Was that common? That just sounds stupid to me. Oh, there's... I believe Khalid's still there.
Which was the perfect place to launch an eastward attack, cutting the line of communications with Arabia. It is not clear how big this army was. Spies had informed Abu Ubaidah about this threat in December, and in early January of 635, he marched south towards Pella, leaving a corps under Yazid behind. As soon as the small garrison of Pella learned of this, it retreated towards the main army, flooding the river Jordan and creating a swamp-like territory dividing the Byzantine and Arab armies.
How do you flood
After
a river?
occupying Pella, the Arab army commanders decided to move towards Baisan to engage Theodore. They didn't know the terrain of this area well, so soon after, the vanguard led by Khalid got stuck in the mud.
How do you flood a river? Were there dams set up to...
And the Muslims were forced to withdraw back to Pella. Theodore waited for a week or so, hoping that his foes would become less vigilant. On the 23rd of January, He marched his troops towards the river with a plan to attack the Muslim camp at night. However, the Muslims had placed scout troops along the river, so as soon as the Romans started crossing, the Arab camp was informed of it and started to form up for battle. We have only limited details on the battle, which, according to the Arab sources, raged through the night and most of the next day. The Romans were able to push their counterparts back to the camp using their slightly larger numbers. According to one chronicle, Theodore was wounded in one of the charges, and the resultant loss of morale made the Romans retreat. When they began crossing a marsh, the Arabs used this to their advantage. They attacked, killing thousands. The rest returned to Baisan. Whatever was left of the Roman army dispersed into various garrisons to the west and south, while Theodore returned to Antioch by sea. There was no...
Yeah, do us all a favor there, Dick. Sorry. Maintain the treasury and stop thinking you're a general, you piece of crap.
Army to fight back against Abu Ubaidah, so he divided his army into corps to conquer as many cities as possible. Shurabil took Baisan and then Tiberias. Afterwards, Shurabil and Amr bin al-As went south, while Abu Ubaidah and Khalid marched north. By March of 635, the Muslims were in control of the whole region to the south of Beirut, save for Caesarea, which withstood a siege reinforced by Heraclius, and Jerusalem, which had the strongest fortifications. Heraclius probably thought that the Muslims would be busy with the sieges, and he had some time, so he was recruiting in order to counterattack in 636. Simultaneously, an alliance with Yazdegerd was established. Heraclius married his granddaughter to the young Sassanid Shah. It was planned that the Persians would attack Muslim positions from the east.
Wait a minute. A Muslim married into a Sassanid? So they're no longer fighting? That was smart.
Meanwhile, Abu Ubaidah's 15...
I didn't do anything.
Illinois homeowners, all the electric companies are raising their rates this year, but you can stop them by getting solar panels installed at no cost to you.
Well, it's going to cost me. 25 years is going to cost me.
Abu Ubaidah's 15,000 were moving north, and by November took over the territory between Damascus and Emesa.
Just a quick note, this has nothing to do with the video. 25 years I'll be paying. For people who don't know, I'm getting solar. I'll be paying 25 years, and I will be paying 50% of what we were paying with Ameren, Illinois. And if you know anything about them, you know that they will do... Look, there's like a butterfly effect. Somebody farts in Florida and they raise the rates 30% here. Because they're like, well, there could be a hurricane in Illinois. It's like, really? Could there be? Never has been yet. Tornadoes in Texas. Could be here. We got to raise the rates 15%. They're a shit company. Just for all you people who are overseas who are thinking, we want to move to the U.S., specifically Illinois, for Ameren power, I'd say don't do it.
Putting this major city in danger. Heraclius rushed reinforcements, which brought the strength of the garrison commanded by Harbais to 8,000. In early December, the city was besieged.
I saw
Harbais
Khalid.
hoped that the Arabs, who weren't used to the cold, would not be able to sustain the siege for too long. At the same time, Emesa was a well-fortified city, with walls 1 mile in diameter, a moat surrounding it, and a citadel within the walls, so the defenders' situation wasn't hopeless. The Muslims weren't strong at the art of siegecraft at that point, and the lack of siege weapons made an assault impossible. So for weeks and then months, the sides did nothing but exchange arrow volleys.
Oh, wow.
By March of 636...
To have a successful siege, do you need something like a catapult or, I'm sorry, a trebuchet? Is that the correct term? You need something like that to really fire some stuff in there. You know, stuff to damage the interior, or maybe to cause a fire or something like that. I mean, arrows, you know, they suck, but you could just tell people, hey, get inside, stupid. They're shooting flaming arrows.
Winter began to subside, and it was becoming clear that the Arab army was planning to starve the Emessans. Food supplies were getting dangerously low, so Harbiz decided to sally out and kill as many foes as possible, believing that it might end the siege. He left small units to defend the walls and concentrated more than 5,000 near the southern gates.
Ooh.
Initially, this sortie was very successful. The Muslims were caught unprepared and were outnumbered 2 to 1, which led to hundreds of casualties and forced them to retreat under Harbiz's pressure. However, Khalid managed to get his cavalry together, arriving to the area of battle shortly after. The numbers were now on the Arab side, and this was enough for the Romans to break off the fight and return to the safety of the walls. The defenders were jubilant, and not at all surprised when the Muslim army gathered to the south and started withdrawing. Harbiz decided that he could score a brilliant victory, and immediately marched out of the city with the same 5,000. He caught up with the retreating Muslims a few miles to the south, but as soon as his mounted troops started charging, Abu Ubaida's units turned back and attacked.
I could tell you that was going to happen because it's Khalid. That son of a bitch is good at war.
A few minutes later, the Romans were surrounded from all sides. Harbiz was killed, and only a few hundred of his soldiers escaped. After a short battle, the Arabs returned to the city, and the garrison, which was left leaderless, surrendered. Meanwhile, to the north, Emperor Heraclius had been preparing an army to counterattack for some time. Various sources provide numbers of this army ranging from a very modest 30,000 to the fantastical 400,000.
Oh,
it should be noted that
is quite a difference in numbers.
As the chroniclers who wrote on this war lived at least 1 or 2 generations after the events, so their depictions weren't based on first or even second-hand accounts. We know that at the peak of the Byzantine-Sassanid War of 602 to 628, Heraclius was able to raise an army of 70,000 for his attack on the Sassanid Empire, but that army had a considerable Gokturk element. At the same time, the Byzantines had to keep some forces in Italy, the Balkans and the Caucasus in order to check the encroaching Lombards, Slavs, Avars and Khazars. In our opinion, the Byzantines outnumbered their opponents at least 2 to 1, but considering the logistical situation in the area of operation, their numbers were below 100,000. Heraclius, who was now in his 60s, suffered from edema, so he wasn't going to lead the army, predominantly made of Greeks, Armenians and Christian Arabs, personally. Instead, the army was divided into...
He suffered from edema. I could look it up. No, I totally know what it is, but why don't you guys just say it in the comments to refresh my memory?
To 5 columns, commanded by 5 generals. The plan was to engage and surround the Muslim forces around Emesa, and use another column to take Damascus, and prevent the troops of the Caliphate operating to the south from reinforcing the northern group. The army left Antioch in the middle of June. Unfortunately for the Romans, a few days before their leading column reached Emesa, the Arabs learned about the counterattack, either from their spies or from the prisoners they took while raiding Shaizar. So Abu Ubaidah ordered his corps to fall back. Initially, the idea was to retreat to Damascus to preserve this conquest, but the city was surrounded by open space that would have given an army with superior numbers an advantage, so the Arabs started retreating towards Jabiya, which was located between the river Yarmouk to the south, Lake Tiberias to the west, and the desert to the east. Messengers were sent to the southern group with the order to march towards Jabiya. The Byzantines, who barely missed an opportunity to crush their opponents around Emesa, started chasing the Arabs, slowly coalescing after taking the city. They retook Damascus and continued south, and sometime in the middle of July 636, their vanguard made contact with the Caliphate's rearguard to the north of Jabiya.
I have a sense that a battle's coming. And I said 117, 18, or 17, 18 minutes. I'm going to stop it here because I don't want to stop it in the middle of a battle. And you just see everyone here. This just feels like it's going to be a kick-ass battle. And by the way, Khalid, and I apologize if I'm butchering his name, but he has become like Belisarius and Hannibal, and I know people want me to say Napoleon, but obviously I'm going to say Oudinot, because we all know Oudinot is way better. Like, he's just become one of those guys that just seems good. Like, he's just good at what he does. He's good at his craft, which is war / murder. He's just a good leader. And so far, I'm glad he wasn't pulled away. I thought he was going to be pulled away and be killed. And that was my real fear. Okay, well, the third shot's kicked in. I'm definitely relaxed. I'm going to end it here, and I'm going to jump right back into it. And I'll probably have another shot. So, Khalid says that if you don't like and subscribe to my channel, a green anaconda is going to attack your nuts when you sleep. And he's like a prophet. So, have a good day, have a good night.